So
Oh,
what
we are
you
good.
tell? We're on, are we?
Yeah, we're on. We are on.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. I wonder if there's anyone there today, because obviously, with you changing your mind so often, we didn't get to tomorrow to do this. We're doing it today. Why put off till tomorrow what you can do today? That's the saying.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's good because it'll tell people. It will find out how many people get. I think they get notified, don't they? If we're on, so we'll find out. We'll find out. But Damo, just like we did for the first 370 episodes, when we didn't know if anyone was listening, it's just you and I. If it's just you and I, it's just you and I. We've got some good things to talk about.
We do. Hey, Peter Lennon's birthday the other day. Did you see that?
Yeah. I wasn't sure if the Facebook algorithm was screwing with me, and I had this post come up like, I don't know, maybe it was like Peter's just had a birthday. So I sent him one of your favorite messages, an audio text message, and said,
Nice.
Pete, I don't know if your birthday is today or yesterday or a month ago or sometime in the last year, but if it was, because Facebook tells me you've had a birthday, happy birthday.
Good
Because
old Facebook.
you know how on Facebook you see a post and it's like, this is from last week. If you ever scroll down more than 3 or 4 posts, you're seeing what, I don't know, someone you've never heard of did 7 days ago. And it's
Maybe because they stalked you. Maybe they were face stalking you, and now they stay in your feed so you can see. Who knows? I mean, bloody Facebook. Who cares anyway?
bloody Facebook.
I'm
That's
glad.
it.
I'm
Hello
glad
to all of
that
our friends watching
Facebook
on
allows
Facebook.
us to do this, but that's about all I'm glad for with Facebook. I'm off it. Like I'm not even on it these days. So
Yeah, it's like that. That's exactly how it is.
Mm.
All right. Well, shall we go live?
We are live.
Shall we hit record? Yeah, sorry.
Helen's already said hello. Hello, Helen. Maybe we can
Sorry,
sing that.
Helen, I'm just peaking here. My brain's just not coping.
Imagine if
there
Helen
it
has
is.
a birthday. We do
When
a
Helen
bit of a
Pocock
Things
has a
of Stone and
birthday?
Wood, bit of a Things and Stone and Wood rendition. It'd be
Oh, that's so good,
isn't
Damo.
it great?
Happy birthday, Helen. Oh, gosh, do you reckon she's ever been sung that?
Never. I don't think she's ever heard that before, ever in her life.
I wonder if that's where Stone and Wood Beer got their name.
Oh, maybe. Joe Arano's here too. He reckons bloody Facebook. I agree. I wonder if in the audio, you know how like the words now come up for us. It tries to guess the words that we've said based on our Australian English
Oh, yes.
language.
Yes.
They try to work it out, right? It'd be interesting whether or not this gets taken down as being fake news. Donald Trump stuff got taken down.
Don't say that.
Fake news.
Don't. We have a lot of people that depend on our Facebook feed.
It's true.
Because
Helen,
that's just how
Helen said she's never heard anyone sing Things of Stone and Wood.
Oh,
Happy Birthday,
you're
Helen, to
joking.
her. But with a laughing out loud emoji.
Oh, right. Okay.
So there you
She
go.
was.
Jeepers.
I nearly had a heart murmur. Okay. So I'll hit record.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, and 1. Hello and welcome to 100 Not Out, a weekly show dedicated to helping you master the art of aging well. Marcus Pearce here with you for episode 394. Can you believe it? And as always, it gives me great joy and pleasure to go down to Melbourne to my brother from another mother. He's not my lockdown lover, but he is my... what is it? I'm a little bit caught on the fly there, but he is my...
Lockdown
he is
lover.
my
I'm
great
outside
mate,
your bubble.
locked down, smiling and laughing as he still somehow does in lockdown. Damien Christoph, how in God's name are you down there?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I look forward to these catch-ups. I was sad because I didn't do 100 Not Out yesterday, being Wednesday. But I'm grateful that we brought it forward from tomorrow to today. So that's a good thing. I'm really happy to be back in practice. That's a really great thing. I'm loving that. Obviously, we're seeing people with symptoms at the moment, not our standard wellness people or people that just want to look after themselves. We're not seeing them. We're only seeing people who are presenting with the symptoms. So that's a little bit challenging, but at the same time, I'm grateful that I get a chance to see those people because in a way, like when you're taking people out of pain, you're helping their health and well-being. So it's far greater than just the pain they might have in their shoulder, or it's far greater than the pain they might have from the headache, So anyway, I'm good. I'm getting out. I'm moving. I'm exercising. Doing all that sort of stuff, which is great. Got Amber in the next room. That's great. And I just can't wait to get out on the golf course. That's going to be good. I'm not sure when Daniel Andrews is going to let us do that. That's a bone of contention. But yeah,
when
I'm doing all right.
Zero line.
How are you? How are you up there in that country called Queensland that's separate to Australia these days? Oh, you're not up there. You're in New South Wales, aren't you? I keep thinking you're in Queensland. Right. You're in New South Wales.
Everyone thinks I'm in Queensland, but that's okay. Now, before I tell you how I am, I think it's only fair that we dedicate episode 394 of 100 Not Out to a great mentor of yours and someone that I had a little bit to do with, but nowhere near as much. And
a great
John
man.
Hinwood. Would you like to share with the listeners who John Hinwood was and why he's worthy of a dedication for this episode?
Yeah, look, John Hinwood was an incredible man who did so much for chiropractic, probably more for chiropractic in Australia than I can't actually think of anyone else who would have done more for chiropractic than John Hinwood. He started the Dynamic Growth Congresses, back in the day when they were all getting off the ground. He invented the business cards that said "Expect a Miracle," and anybody who ever met John got one of those. He had a way of actually impacting everybody within chiropractic in Australia knew who John Hinwood was, and he and his wife Judy started a program around helping people go from, a really stressed out lifestyle and burned out to, resilience and being stress free. And John and Judy, essentially they were pioneers. Unfortunately, John did some work with some asbestos, a number of, back in the 60s or 70s, got exposed to asbestos, developed mesothelioma, fought it, valiantly and gallantly, and he did a great job and avoided, the standard therapies. He used some other medications, natural medicines that were really, quite amazing. And he was able to live quite well and relatively symptom-free from his disease for a long time. And then, unfortunately, he lost his battle only about a week ago. So John, an incredible man. We love him to bits. He told everyone to expect a miracle, and everybody who did expect a miracle was blessed by, John's presence in their life, which was just outstanding. I've got this great story about John, actually. I'd love to share it. I was at a Dynamic Growth Congress up in Queensland one year, and I'm in the urinal having a little wee, and I hear the door kick open, and John walks in and he stands next to me. He goes, "Oh, hello, sweetheart." And he leans over and gives me a kiss on the cheek. No, actually on the lips while I'm having a wee. And then he proceeds to have his wee. And I go, "John, you just kissed me on the lips." He goes, "Of course, sweetheart. Where else would I kiss you, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so rattled," Anyway, so I didn't know whether or not to keep peeing forward or pee on his shoes or what, but it was one of the greatest memories. It's so funny. This
what a state changer.
He did. He just used to shake things up. He used to do things that triggered people, and it was just an incredible thing. He was great.
Well, that is a great segue into our episode today. And again, love and condolences to Judy and the Hinwood family. You mentioned shaking the cage. Now, Darby, my son's birthday today. He's 8 today, Darby. And he's very excited about his birthday. Happy birthday, Darby.
He's a legend.
Now, Darby went to bed quite well last night.
Does he still believe in magic?
Still, absolutely.
Yeah.
He believes in magic so much that it kept him awake. It rattled my cage. He woke up at 11 o'clock, hoping it was already his birthday, and didn't fall asleep again till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was lying in his bed, attempting to help him go to sleep. But at one point I said, "Darby, I've just got to go back to my bed. This is ridiculous." And he started crying because it was just all of it. The excitement, the magic got to him. And you speak about shaking the cage. Well, John Hinwood may have shaken your cage in a toilet one day. Darby shook my cage in the middle of the night. When it was meant to be a happy event, it became incredibly frustrating. But thankfully, he's showing no signs of poor sleep at the moment, although Sarah is with him at the moment, so I wouldn't know. But we were talking off air before we hit record today about episodes that have rattled us because you have very, very lovingly written the foreword to my upcoming book, and it spoke about in your passage about when the cage was rattled. And so we thought we would talk about some of the people that we've interviewed that have rattled us, in that they've said something that we, for want of a better term, disagree with, that hasn't been the way we've seen the world, and it has shaken our beliefs and insights and views. And then we'd like to invite you, the listeners, to think about times when your cage has been rattled and what it means. So would you like to share, a couple of examples of 100 United episodes, Damon, that spring to mind that have really shaken the foundations of your beliefs?
Yeah. Love to, Pearsey. Let's just give it a bit of context, because when we started doing 100 Not Out, I was hard case. Like, I was nutrition, that's the way, that's the future. Don't worry about exercise. It's going to grind your bones down. You just got to eat well. You'll avoid all chronic disease. Take heaps of, nutrients, supplements, and you'll be fine. Yep. That's kind of where my model was. It was a very, what I thought was a vitalistic, health-oriented, naturopathic approach to lifestyle and living would translate to longevity, and every interview we did from day one really challenged the way in which I thought about that. So much so that some of them are burned into my amygdala because it created such an emotional response, So I remember, when we were interviewing, centenarians, in particular Dexter Kruger, and he was telling us about his diet, and having coffee before he goes to bed at midnight, and just stuff like that, and having sausages for lunch, or a casserole, or a cake for afternoon tea.
Cake for morning tea.
Morning tea, because the ladies at the local Rotary would bring him a cake, and he'd eat the whole lot, and just stuff like that. I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. That's good on him. He's lucky. He's one of the lucky ones that got away with a bad diet, and he's lived a long life. Just bit by bit. The more I kind of fell into this kind of thing, I was like going, oh my gosh, these people are living well, and they're happy, and they're not stressing out about their food. They're not counting how many fish oil capsules they're having per kilogram of body weight. They're not having 150 milligrams of ubiquinol because they've got elevated cholesterol. They're not doing this stuff, and I was thinking, this is weird. Anyway, then we interviewed a guy by the name of Wally Bortz. And we were, I was recording from my car. So I had a lunch date at a local cafe in Cheltenham. I was parked on the side of the road. Wally Bortz is banging on about exercise and that calories from food didn't really matter. It's calories, a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. He said that it didn't matter what you eat. It's all about movement. And I was like, WTF, Wally? As if you freaking know, you GP, MD, piece of bloody poo. Like, as if you even know what you're talking about, even if you're 80-something, still running marathons, right? This is how ridiculously narrow-minded I'd become. And so that really triggered me, burned into my amygdala an emotional response that I was challenged by. But it really, now upon reflection, changed the way that I then started to look at food, because I was like, actually, you know what? He could be right. It may be that if you eat great food and you have a healthy diet, that you decrease the risk of chronic disease. Now, that could be heart disease, diabetes, certain types of cancer, gastrointestinal dysfunction, diseases, kidney dysfunction, liver, fatty liver disease. It could be osteopenia, osteoporosis, and all the other nutrient insufficiencies and all that sort of stuff. These could be the reasons why you eat a healthy diet, because you decrease the risk of those diseases. But that doesn't necessarily confer a long, healthy life. And then you started to talk about, people that had been vegan or Pritikin or I don't know, even when we look at keto, or we look at some of these extreme eating programs, like the Atkins diet, for example. These people who invented these diet died young, and I was like, this is too much. Like, were they unlucky? And really what it came down to was that it was movement. And then reading a story about Wally at the moment, he's saying that he wasn't in moderation, and he refers back to the Greeks. And ultimately, what I talk about these days, Piercy, is that when we went to Ikaria, after my first trip to Ikaria, I realised that I had to rip up my manuscript because it was all wrong. And I've really struggled and grappled with that since 2016 to try and work out what am I going to write that's going to be of use to people based on what I now know, as opposed to what I thought then.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's amazing how... Yeah, I feel like this podcast, we've become more in search of timeless wisdom rather than wisdom for the next 1 to 2 or 3 years. And so interviewing people that are, literally 2 generations older than us, and in some cases older than that.
Yeah.
It's like, what is timeless? What have they learned over, 10 decades? That has held them in good stead.
Exactly. Here's me, a young whippersnapper at 40-something years old, challenging a bloke who's 80 years old, would have seen tens of thousands of patients, run hundreds of thousands of kilometres probably because he's a marathon runner, and here I am with only probably less than 20 years experience at the time when we interviewed him. Now at 21 years of experience, thinking I know everything. I don't know. Like, I've realised that I don't know everything, and I'm learning a lot from people who have aged along the way.
That has been a really good point, actually. That I feel like the longer this podcast has gone on, the more removed we've become from what we learn and what other people share. Like, we're not attached to the information anymore. I feel like what you were saying is I had parallel experiences, but as a vegan. So I came into 100 Not Out as a vegan. So I was triggered by anyone that really ate meat and did it well. And then I had to go, okay, well, because I was reading books like the China Study. We often read books for confirmation bias. So the China Study would pretty much say that, excess protein was a leading cause of cancer. So then we'd interview people that ate meat. And obviously you eat meat. No, I now eat meat. But it was like I came in with the bias that vegan is right for longevity. So we interviewed Mimi Kirk, who I still think to this day is like Peter's, sexiest vegetarian alive. But she would say that she went from a vegetarian to a vegan, and then I think a raw vegan. But she explained it in her ways, non-attached. Like, she came from a family of smokers and heavy medicators, and she had what medicine would call all the bad genes based on family history, but she put herself in a completely different environment to what they did. And so I think that was a way to go, okay, hold on a minute. It's not just what you eat, but it's also, the driver as to why you eat. And then we interviewed David Wolfe, and I respect David Wolfe, but some of the things he was saying during our interview with him, I was like, oh, this is not probably going down the path that I thought. So that was kind of triggering my own
he triggered me.
Belief systems. Yeah. And then there's people that we still haven't interviewed that I would have, deep questions for, like John Robbins, who wrote Healthy at 100, the son of the Baskin-Robbins, ice cream empire, and Dan Buettner, who is the founder of the Blue Zones, who in many ways, if he hadn't created and done his research with National Geographic, places like Ikaria and Sardinia may not be known for their
that could still
longevity.
Be a secret.
Well, the research, may not have been done. It would have required all the funding and all the rest of it. But I think what I've recognised, even with, both those two individuals have their own philosophies have shifted and changed over time. And I feel like that's good in a way, because it shows that they're not stagnant or attached to one way for the rest of their time. Whereas I feel like with those diet experts that died young or died prematurely, they were firmly attached that their way was the right way. And even to the day they died, that was their message, that their way was the right way. Where, I don't want to go on a hyper romantic kind of note, but, anyone that knows some of Leo Tolstoy's work, the book, I think it's it might be Anna Karenina. Anyway, one of the last words of a man that is dying is like, what if everything I thought was wrong? And I think that's a really confronting but sometimes wise way to live, because it then allows you to be not so emotionally attached. When we get triggered by an episode or a guest on a podcast, we go, well, hold on a minute. What if I'm actually the one that's yet to learn a way of life or a piece of information rather than them being, as you've said, wrong. And I think that's what I've enjoyed, and I think a lot of our listeners have enjoyed in the podcast, is that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it shows a maturity as well. It shows a bit of maturity. And Helen actually says, Helen Pocock said, guess it all means you should never stop questioning things. And I think that's really true too. Don't take it for granted that because one person says something that is true and correct. In fact, one of the things that I wrote in the foreword for MP was that all the things that I thought were correct weren't necessarily correct, but they weren't necessarily wrong, but they weren't necessarily right either. And so all the stuff that I'd learned. So it was like, it's all builds upon your knowledge bank and your knowledge base. And, as you learn more, you refine it and it becomes more appropriate for you and for your life. So this morning I was interviewed on a radio station and they said to me, what do you definitely not ever buy in the supermarket, and what do you always buy in the supermarket? And so that was a really interesting question, because I was like, okay, well, what don't I buy? And I think the reality is I probably would avoid most processed foods except for chocolate and a bit of ice cream. But that's because of Tommy Hafey. I eat ice cream because of Tommy Hafey. That's the only reason. And he did a bloody good job. And so I definitely avoid artificial sweeteners and the stuff that's pretending to be natural, but it's not. It's artificial. That's made with stevia and erythritol, all that sort of stuff. So I definitely avoid that sort of thing. But I'm always buying fresh stuff. I'm buying nuts and seeds, and it's really the time-tested stuff. But had you asked me that a decade ago when I was doing television in New Zealand, well, more than a decade ago, doing television. So when was that? Far out, 2007. I finished that. Oh, goodness gracious, 13 years ago. Getting old. Had you asked me that back then, if you had looked at my trolley, like I would spend $150 a week back then and it was just all green and all groceries and all that sort of stuff. And these days, I'm not as strict as that. I still eat very, very healthy, and I still eat, unbelievably great food. But I'm probably a little bit more liberal and have a bit more relaxation around it, because I'm more aware that our happiness and our movement has such a significant impact and influence on our longevity, which is my goal. More than spending hundreds of dollars on fresh fruit and vegetables every single week.
I've just had a mini epiphany whilst listening to you speak, is that you speak about becoming more liberal. I feel like since we've started this podcast 394 episodes ago, I've stopped being vegan. I now eat more foods. My diet has more breadth. I also was off the grog. I now love a glass of wine.
Yes.
And some of the most favorite conversations of my life, or people that I have met and bonded with over goat or over red wine or over cheese or what I'm saying is something that I was very tunnel visioned in my diet, which meant, and I'm thinking you're saying the same thing, which means that you actually have a tunneled experience of life, because you don't socialize with certain people. You say no to certain experiences, and that can then take you away from other opportunities and friendships and other wonderful things. And I feel like, gosh, if I had stayed vegan, maybe we'd never have gone to Ikaria, because I would have gone, no, they eat goat, that doesn't fit, that they eat cheese, that doesn't fit with the vegan world, so I won't go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a question that we can all ask ourselves, is are our beliefs tunneling us and restricting us into a certain way of life to our detriment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would agree with that, and I think that given my allergy to vegans, it would have been really difficult to have travelled with you. I'd been sneezing the whole way there. Like I would have been itchy and sneezing.
So when we first met, you were so nice to me. Like for the first 1 or 2 years of our friendship, we really bonded. I mean, how were you so? Were you like the the raging Christian that's like, oh, they'll come around at some point. No, they'll come around. No, it's just a matter of time and they'll come around. Like, were you looking at me, wasting away, becoming more waif-like by the day, going, he'll get it. He'll get there? The penny will drop.
With your paper thin pecs. No, see, a lot of people used to think that I was judgmental, because I did a weight loss TV show.
Disagree.
Like people used to think that I would judge them because they were overweight or judge them because they ate a particular way. That's not who I am. So my approach or my language at the time might have suggested that I was judging, but I definitely wasn't, because probably like you, Piercy, but you've put it into a book form. I could see that people could make their life even better. And all I wanted to do was just make sure that, people were ready to do that, kind of like a readiness for change kind of, questionnaire. Where are they in that, readiness for change, model? When do I get a chance to actually give them my information, And so it was kind of that. So I'd get triggered by people who were overweight, who continue to be overweight and complained. That would trigger me. Or if people were underweight and couldn't build muscle, and would complain, but continue to do what they'd always been doing, and I knew that there was another way to do it and would potentially get great results. So I get triggered by people who complain but choose to do the same thing as that they've always done, but they continue to complain. That triggers me. And so in that, I'm always looking for ways to help those people see that there's a better way to do it. So, I'm excited because your book's going to come out, and that's going to be the panacea. That's going to be the answer for everybody's problems. So I can't wait for that. That's going to be good.
Oh, I don't know about that, but hey, how do we always seem to just, one, the time flies when we talk, and two, I don't think we've stuck to 20 minutes for the last 6 years. Maybe we were tight with it in the first 12 months, but to wrap up, I think it's imperative that we ask all of our listeners, like, go and listen to episodes that you think might trigger you and see if it does, and see how you respond. Because I think, as interviewers, I think now, when the episodes are over, Damo and I will often have a chat, particularly if it got us. And I think it's really good to have that relationship to be able to go, okay, like, is it just me? Because I think that's that's a purpose of the podcast.
Yeah.
But Damo, we have to give a couple of shout outs. I think you mentioned, I can't remember if you mentioned it on air or off air, but happy belated birthday to Pete Lennon, a wonderful listener of ours. And big shout out to Scott down at the local cafe here in South Golden Beach, Mrs. Birdie. He listens to the podcast. He empathises with your masophobia.
Can you get it right? It's mesomastophonia. Mesomastophonia. That's all it is.
He empathises with your maso. That he thought I was far too cheeky in eating chocolate or chewing in front of you on that episode, which I agree with, but I don't regret, because it's fun to taunt sometimes, and it's the oldest child in me.
Yes.
And is there anyone that isn't listening that you think we should give a shout out to or say derogatory remarks about because they're not listening?
Yeah, where are you, Wendy? Wendy Adams is here, but Wendy Stewart's not here.
You pick on her so much.
Where is she? Debbie's not here. Well, I reckon there's a lot of people that aren't here today because you changed the day. And
my fault. I take full responsibility.
3 times, but that's the reason why. So I can't pick on anybody. But
yep.
Big game tomorrow.
It's all your mates. It's all your mates. Ravi Rudner's not here.
Yeah, Ravs is not here.
My sister's not here.
No.
Yeah, there's a few Facebookers, but that's okay.
Peter
For all
Leonard's
of our loyal listeners in podcast land who are all over the world, I think we're up to over 1 million downloads, Damo. I'll have to check it out for 100 not out, but we're getting on in age.
Gee
we
whiz.
are 8 not out, I think, in 8 times 50. No, is it 7 times 50? What? 7 times 52? 3? No, it must be 8.
8. Yeah, we're nearly 8.
We're getting up to 8. February 2021, for memory, is our 8th birthday.
Wow.
That's going to be big. Darby's 8 today. So that's actually that's interesting.
Wow.
Darby's just a little bit older than 100 not out.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, fascinating.
Gee whiz.
So, and there are hundreds of people that I still want to interview on this podcast.
Yeah.
Hundreds. So anyway, thanks again, Damo, for your wisdom. Thanks for sharing. Thanks
You
for
too,
writing it
Pissy.
forward to the book, by the way. That is
Thank
just
you.
yeah, love it. For all of our lovely listeners, thank you for your support, and viewers on Facebook. Thanks for making this message go viral. Go over to damiankristof.com to receive more of the great man's wisdom. Myself over at marcuspearce.com.au. Big shout out to everyone that makes this podcast possible. Behind the scenes, Joseph Tomei, our editor. Cielo does a lot of the social media, and everyone else involved at the Wellness Couch. Thank you, and we would love your feedback. The best way for you to do it is to leave a 5-star rating and a review. You can pop your comments in there, and if you could be kind enough to share this podcast with a friend, family member, open their world up to podcast land. It's a great land to be in. Just show them 100 Not Out in your favorite podcast app, whether that's in Apple or Spotify's all the rage these days.
Yep.
Spotify have come to us, Damo, with a $5 million contract to be exclusive to Spotify. I politely declined, knowing that you wouldn't want to be contained to one provider only.
Yeah, thanks.
But just letting you know that is
keeping it free
on
there.
the table.
Yeah, good.
Keeping it free and out there. To everyone that is a part of the community, we love you. And until next week, as always, continue to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Bye for now. That's the best. Tony Colville is there. Unbelievable. Rhonda Murphy's there too. That's awesome. I haven't seen Tony Colville or Rhonda for ages. That's cool. Wendy Adams. It was always nice to see her drop in. That's good. Hey, we're
Wendy.
still we are still broadcasting. Just so you know.
That's good. I won't swear.
Yep. Just so you know.
Bloody Facebook. Joe Irano. Yeah. Now, for everyone that is watching, Jean Kitson is coming. She was going to join us tomorrow, but I've now changed the time. So next Wednesday, 3:00.
All right.
Coming. There's some good stuff coming up on the podcast. So, yeah. All right. I'm busting for a wee, so I'm going to go if that's okay. Because
like Rhonda, I said we obviously mentioned Rhonda just before. She said still always listening, which is lovely. Thank you, Rhonda. And then I said about Tony, haven't seen Tony for ages. And most people say locked down. But how positive is Tony? Like how positive is his mindset? Because he goes, because we're locked up.
Yes.
How good's that?
I love it.
So positive. So good.
And
So good.
Debbie Bunyard's just come on at the end.
Mate,
Debbie, happy belated birthday for
Yes,
last
Debs.
week.
Yeah, we missed
Tell
you,
what,
Debs.
lots of mentions on the podcast, I think.
We sang for you as well, Debs.
Oh my! Did we? Did we really?
We sang
The
happy
poor listeners.
birthday.
Did we? Wow, that is so good.
Yeah. We'll do the same thing for Helen when it's her birthday, don't you?
Debbie, I think you got a mention today as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
locked up in jail.
So true. We are
All right.
locked up. Go to the
love it,
bathroom
hugs
before
and
you explode. It's
thoughts.
been a long time. It's been at least 15 minutes since you've been to the bathroom. So
Yeah, you know my blood heart's terrible. Too much tea before I got on board. I should have done anyway.
That looks like a neti pot.
TMI now. It's a neti pot. What? Looks like a what?
a neti pot. You know the neti pot? You stick it up your nose and pour the... I love it.
All right.
All
I'm
right.
about to burst.
All right.
All right.
See you later, mate.
See you guys. Bye, legends.
Bye.
Bye.